chapter 13, what we have seen is Bhagwan wants us to, first and foremost, before we make any changes, that is when he is instructing Arjun, before Arjun makes any changes in his personality, in his attitude, and heads towards a spiritual life, the first thing Bhagwan says, I need you to understand two basic things. And that is the very topic of chapter 13. Kshetra, Kshetragyam, Vibhagaha. Simply understood, Kshetra stands for the world of matter. Everything that is material and matter. Of course, everything is Panchatattva. And the entire world, of course, is ordained and governed by the spirit. So, Purusha is the spirit or Kshetragyam. So, two set of words have been used interchangeably, not to be confused. Kshetra, world of matter. Kshetragyam, the spirit behind it. Prakriti or Purush, in whichever way we use it. Now, the main thing is, Vibhaga means to be able to distinguish. Why does Bhagwan want us in this entire chapter, the very topic is Kshetra, Kshetragyam, Vibhagaha, to distinguish. Why? Because we think that we are matter. That is, of course, the body and the mind and the intellect, and then the association with the body extends out into the possessions of that body, which is the house and the family and the community and the vehicles we have. So that's an extension of the identification. So Bhagwan says, this is our kshetra, it is the field, literally speaking, it's field. But who is the knower? Who is the one who knows this field? For example, I know what is going on in my mind. Who is the observer? So there has to be some other entity, because my mind cannot observe itself. My body is so inert that it cannot observe itself. When my hand cannot see itself, it needs a sentient entity to be able to recognize something inert. So there is one sentient or conscious entity which is recognizing the experience which is happening through the body and the mind and all. So the world of matter and the experiences of this world of matter, who is experiencing and who is the experiencer? It has to be someone different, otherwise inert cannot know itself. That is the basic logic. And why does he want us to distinguish? Because all our troubles, all our agitations, all our disturbances, and all our distance from God, naturally all the agitation and anger and kama esha, krodha esha, that means only lust and desire and anger are the only two things Bhagwan said in chapter 3 which are our greatest enemies. That distance that is created between God and myself is only and only because we think we are kshetra and we are operating within that. So everything that we are experiencing which is of the world is experienced only in kshetra. So you may say, okay, then being in kshetra, can I experience Bhagwan? That's why there have been great volumes and volumes written about meditation and samadhi, because meditation and samadhi in the deep sense is only and only transcending and going beyond this body through the mind. It is actually entering a new dimension where there is no time and space. See, going beyond time and space is not as abstruse. Abstruse means it's not as complex as it sounds, because every day we go beyond time and space. That is in our deep sleep. In our deep sleep, we have no awareness of where we are, whether we are on top of the bed or lying under the bed, whether we are covered, not covered. We have no awareness of space nor time. What time is it? Is it day or night? Is it the year 2022 or is it the year, is it the previous century, 1990? Am I still in college? No awareness of time, no awareness of space. We know that dimension, except that in deep sleep we are not aware of it. So in deep meditation and in samadhi, when we go beyond this dimension of the material world, we say that we have gone into the dimension of kshetragyam. Only the experiencer, only that awareness remains. So why do we want to get out of this kshetra? People will say, I'm fine, I'm living in this body. Okay, but the spiritual life says that all the disturbances that we experience are also within kshetra. Think about it. When we are in deep sleep, has there anyone who has complained that in my deep sleep I felt sorrow? Think about it. It's ridiculous. It never can happen. Never can it happen that in deep sleep, anyone, even if there has been a bereavement in the family and the greatest tragedy or whatever in our waking hours, the moment we fall asleep, we are off. We are out of that sorrow. Which means that we have transcended the dimension of time, space, and of course this material body. The material body, we don't even know where it is lying, in which room, in which house, top of the bed, under. No experience of the material matter, which is me, which I think is me, this body. Therefore, the logic is simple, that not being in this kshetra, all in the world of matter, is to go beyond sorrow. All the sorrow plays out only in the world of matter. Simple. That's why Bhagavan is saying the only knowledge worth knowing is that the kshetragyam, that awareness is the real you. This is the only knowledge worth knowing, that who is the real me. So it is spirit which is walking about dressed up like matter. So everyone is wearing different dresses and different costumes, which means different bodies. So it's like just spirit dressed up, that's all. Dressed up in bodies. And the real awareness or real me is that awareness, the experiencer of everything that is material. So going beyond the material is basically what Bhagavan is driving at. And then he uses a beautiful word in 13th chapter, verse number 3, when he says, Vidhi sarva kshetreshu. Vidhi means please know that I am that unchanging consciousness equally in sarva, in every single thing in the world. Whether it is Prakriti, whether it is Prakriti, of course we are all part of Prakriti. So whether it is Jiva, animal or humankind, all creatures and everywhere. Sarva kshetreshu, I exist everywhere. What does this mean for us? For us it simply means that there are many people in the world. Yes, they have many different kinds of swabhava, and we know that's where the swabhava comes from by now. We know it comes from attitudes which are built over by repeated practice, the attitudes which are built up over many lifetimes, and then they become the personality and the vasana. Using a Vedic language, the vasana, the previous impression. We know all that. We also know that there is great diversity in all the vasanas and personalities, and of course the outer body forms. That's obviously different. But Atma is one. It cannot be two. That is the whole point of this chapter. Atma is one. It is indivisible. Avyayam. So that which is indivisible, how come we keep saying inki atma, unki atma or meri atma? It is just a manner of speaking, but it's not strictly speaking in the Vedantic sense. Atma is one, no matter where it exists. That's why I had asked you to underline this phrase in the third verse, Vidhi sarva kshetreshu. There is no doubt about that. That Atma is one. It is indivisible, which means that it exists equally and equally unchanging, without any partiality, in the saint and the scholar and the scoundrel. I mean, whoever. we have made these distinctions about the saint and the scholar and the scoundrel. Why do we make these distinctions? Because we are looking at the kshetra, the outer personality, and the outer form, which is the field, kshetra. Okay, so just so that no one is confused about these two terms, which are very technical terms, kshetra, kshetragyam, I have distinguished it very simply. Okay, world of matter, world of spirit. It's not very difficult to understand. It's just a terminology. So who are we? Finally, we are nothing but spirit functioning through a very specific particular kind of body that we have got. We did not order this body, we did not choose this body, we did not choose its form or its shape or its color or or even the family we were. No, it's a given, and we are merely functioning within that body. We meaning the spirit. So finally, who are we? Are we kshetra or are we spirit? Are we matter or are we spirit? Simple answer, we are both. Naturally, it's like saying steam engine में steam है कि engine है. अरे दोनों है. Only then it's possible to make it function as an engine. Steam as well as engine. Now, having said this is a basic introduction, and Bhagwan in 8th verse onwards, as I promised, is going to talk about the change of attitude, so that in the sense, how do we change attitude? We recognize that there are certain virtues in the world that we may like to cultivate. Bhagwan is not dogmatizing it, he is not dictating or commanding it. Nowhere in the scriptures, at least in Gita or anywhere in Vedas, is there any commandment or dogma. It is only a suggestion that these virtues which are coming up will make your personality so subtle, the mind so unburdened, that we will be free to view and to sense the beauty of Bhagwan, which is actually the real self of ourselves. Isn't that what happens in meditation? Isn't that what happens in deep sleep? Isn't that what happens in samadhi? In these three states, we actually drop everything which is dealing with the world of matter and all the agitations which are connected with that matter. Yeah, so relationships and people and situations and words that hurt and situations that hurt or disturb, everything is dropped, because we don't, in these three states, we are not existing in the world of matter, so to say. Deep sleep, deep meditation itself is called samadhi actually. In these three states, we are not existing as kshetra, as matter at all. So simply said, we still exist, isn't it? So the real we are kshetragyam, the experiencer behind all the experiences, and that experiencer does not know sorrow. We have seen it in deep sleep. No one has come out of deep sleep saying that I experienced deep sorrow or distress or I was distraught. Never. From deep sleep you cannot emerge in that fashion, because we had dropped the world of matter, and therefore there was no sorrow. So the connection is very clear. So it's like each one of us feel that we are different, we are unique. Of course we are unique in the outer form, no doubt, but the sunlight, which is shining on all the droplets in the yard, each droplet is shining in its own way and feeling proud that I am reflecting the sun. You see, I am so beautiful, and the sun feels so strange and laughs at all the droplets and saying, don't be silly, you're the same sunlight reflecting, you're the same sunlight reflecting back at me. Consciousness or Bhagwan or Atma or whatever it is only reflected through our outer form, the body, mind and intellect. We are only reflectors. We don't have a self-illumination. We cannot be illumined by ourselves. By illumination we mean we cannot function on our own. We don't have that consciousness, that awareness, that capacity. We know this. How? Because when the doctor, he fixes an artificial, suppose he transplants an eye, which is damaged or on a blind person, and you donate the eyes, and then that eye is used to fit it into another body. So he fits the new eye in somebody's body. The doctor can do only that much. The eye can be fitted. The eye is just an organ. It's an instrument. But the capacity to see, can the doctor ordain it? Can the doctor make it happen? The capacity to see is something that comes only because of consciousness, right? So here we are, knowing that we are just an inert bundle. And of course Bhagwan is going to take this a little further, and he is going to drive the point home about what kind of bundle we actually are. Inert bundle, in verses 5, 6, 7. So let's hear Krishna's words himself. How beautifully he has put it. So the knower of the field, Bhagwan, I may like to remind you, at the end of verse 3 in chapter 13, Bhagwan says, unequivocally he says that do not forget, yatagyanam matam mama, this knower, this experiencer of all the world of matter, that experiencer, that spirit is me. Me, Krishna has said, Krishna is himself saying is, yatagyanam matam mama. That means we are as close to Krishna as we feel we are close to this body. In fact, he is closer. So, Krishna resides in all of us. Verse number 4, he goes on to tell us a little more detail, just a little bit more about this bundle of matter with which we mistake ourselves, and that mistake causes us to go through all the sorrows and travails and tribulations of the world. Number 4. Tatak kshetram yaccha yadrikcha yadvikari yatascha yat sachayo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrunu. This field is, and the nature of this field. Now field, again I'm using a new word, it simply means matter or kshetra. Kshetra literally means field also. So Bhagwan is saying this world of matter or field and all its modifications, means what does it cause us to do, or how does it result in our lives, and where does it come from? Yatascha yata. I am going to tell you what are all its powers. Powers यानी उसका प्रभाव. Second line में उन्होंने कहा है सचयो यत प्रभावश्च, उसका प्रभाव हमारे जीवन में क्या होता है, किसका? Not spirit, that world of matter with which we are attached, उसका प्रभाव कैसे होता है हमारे लाइफ में? तत्समासेन मे शृणु. In brief, I am going to tell you, he says. He himself is saying, I'll tell in brief. That means in 2 verses. Me shrunu, please listen to me, he says. Shrunu. I said, okay, we will listen. We are here to listen to Bhagwan. So, he goes on to explain this bundle that we are associated with. Verse number 5, chapter 13. Rishibher bahudha gitam. He says, many rishis, many bahudha rishis have sung songs, so many songs about this. This meaning what he is describing, the kshetra, kshetragyam. Chando bhir vividhai prithaka. And they have chanted. Chand means chant. In all different ways. Vividhai, prithaka, in all kinds of ways. It has been chanted. Rishis have sung about the field as well as the knower of the field. यानी कि मैटर एंड स्पिरिट दोनों के बारे में बहुत सारे ऋषियों ने बहुधा और उसको छंदों में श्लोकों में बांधकर हमको दिया है. हु इज सेइंग? कृष्णा इज सेइंग. ब्रह्मसूत्र पदैश्चव. और सिंबॉलिक फॉर्म में भगवान कह रहे हैं ब्रह्मसूत्र कि सिंबॉलिक वे में इन सब को इंडिकेट किया है, इन सब छंदों में, कि ब्रह्म कौन है. ब्रह्मन, दैट हाईएस्ट सुप्रीम रियलिटी, ब्रह्मन, ये क्या है, कहाँ कहा गया है? ऋषियों के छंदों में, गीतों में. गीतम ऊपर लिखा है ना. सो भगवान इज एक्सप्लेनिंग हेतुर्मद्भिर्निश्चितैः, हेतुर्मद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः. He says that this has been indicated that there is a Brahman, that there is a higher reality, and that is supreme through a lot of reasoning and logic and convincing arguments. Krishna is simply saying that look, even the rishis, that is the author of the if you may call them authors, the author of the discoverer of truth, the writers of Vedas, are and not asking us to have a blind belief. So Krishna is saying, Arjun, we are not even talking, Arjun, about blind belief in all the scriptures. Basically, he is talking about scriptures, that all the basic reasoning and logic and science has been used to prove that there is a higher Brahman or reality. And we can see that whenever we read the Vedas, that there is always reasoning, there is always logic, there is conviction. Hetur mad bhivit nischitaihi means there is reasoning, there are convincing arguments. Not dogma, not commandments, not dictates. Here we may smile a little and say that, oh, even Krishna needs to cite the authority of the Vedas, because he probably thinks that Arjun, is he going to listen to me? I am his charioteer, I am his childhood friend, and I am his cousin. He may not even take me seriously. This is what happens when we don't feel the authority of some scripture. We say, oh, इनका ये जो कहना है ये कहाँ तक सत्य है, कहाँ से इनको ये सत्य पता चला? We don't want to believe just anyone. So Krishna is saying, Arey, you don't have to believe me if you don't want to. I am quoting the scriptures. Rishibir Bahudha Gitam. Even Krishna has to quote the authority of the scriptures. That of course is a sweet way, and it is also a very humble way of saying that, look, don't consider me as the ultimate authority. Even a teacher like Krishna, who will say that don't consider me and follow me blindly, that means that he has adopted a beautiful attitude of not being abhimani about his knowledge and not pushing it down anyone's throat. That none of our scriptures do anyway. They just use some basic logic and reasoning, and then at the end, in the 18th chapter, Bhagavan says to Arjun, Yat ichhasi tat kuru. Now it is up to you to think, Yat ichhasi, आपकी जो इच्छा है वैसे ही आप कर्म करो. मुझे जो समझाना था लाइफ के बारे में समझा दिया. No commandments, no dogma. So this is a beautiful verse where he says that I am going to talk about. I'm only telling you what the rishis have said. That's what Krishna says. Number 6, chapter 13, 6th verse. He wants to explain what is this bundle that we call me, by whatever name we call it, yeah? Radhika or whatever names we may have. So first of all, we have a name, and around that name we have a lot of image about who we are. What is this bundle? Now Krishna is going to break it down to 24 parts, and then the question will be thrown at us, which of these is me, the actual me? So let's see this riddle. It's a beautiful riddle. Mahabhutanya hankaro buddhiravyaktameva cha. We live in this field. The great elements, and the great elements of course we know, man, buddhi, ahankar, indriyani dashaikam cha panchachendriya gocharaha. What is this bundle? Simply said, Pancha Mahabhut, we all are familiar with the 5 basic elements of which the whole material world is made up of, right? So that is Akash, Prithvi, Vayu, Jal, Agni, yes? Air, water, fire, etc. Panch Mahabhut. Everything in the world of matter, even science will tell us that, is made up of these Mahabhut. What happens to this? This of course forms our body also. Our body is also formed out of this Panch Mahabhut. When they go to the crematorium, that's what they say, na? They say कि इनको हमने पंच महाभूत में विलीन कर दिया, which means he is gone, the dead person has gone back to Panch Mahabhut. Means he is not disappeared, he is transformed into these 5 elements: Akash, Prithvi, Vayu, Jal, Agni. Okay, so that's the body. What about the man? Yes, when we are alive, we have not only the body, but out of this Panch Mahabhut, the gross Panch Mahabhut makes the gross body, and the Sukshma Mahabhut makes the Sukshma body. The Sukshma body means the subtle body, and we know what it is. It's the man. Why do we call it subtle? Because it is more pervasive than the body, and it is not easy to see it, perceive with the naked eyes. Okay, so the man is the subtle body. Now, but it is also jad. We must remember the man is also jad, but it can emote, na? It can have emotions, na? Where does it have? How can it have emotions? It can have emotions because it has consciousness. It carries the impressions and memories because it has consciousness. Otherwise, it can't even carry emotions and memories and impressions. So, man is that other part. Then we have a buddhi. What is the function of the buddhi? To judge, to analyze, to discriminate, to discern. वो बुद्धि के तौर पर होता है, right? And then attached to this man, buddhi and body is of course something called ahankar. I, the identity of कि ये bundle मैं हूँ, उसमें मैं पन जो है अहंकार, that is also added. Now all the likes and dislikes, sukha, dukha, everything is felt in this ahankar area. The man by itself is too inert to even translate. It only has these emotions. Man, buddhi, ahankar. We are only talking about what are the components of this entity that we call me, I, मैं कौन हूँ. तो बाहर से gross से लेते हुए सूक्ष्म तक भगवान is doing a very scientific analysis. So the gross body, panch mahabhut, man, buddhi,